completely converted to Islam, to Muslim.
Wow.
For 3 years in prison. And that was my imam, basically, the dude, my celli. We were praying every day, we were fasting, we were reading the Quran. We had to read the Bible too, because if you're a real Muslim, you have to actually go back to the books before your book, which is the Injil, they call it, which is the New Testament, and the Torah, which is the Old Testament. Right?
Yeah. So, being that you grew up Buddhist, you practiced Islam for a season. Now, as a follower of Christ, like, there's a lot of people who are studying religions and trying to figure stuff out. You had a lot of time to sit and study. What would you say? What would you say to some of those individuals who are trying to process what's this and what's that, and understand the difference between them all, or why it can't just be one? How would you talk to them?
So the first thing is every religion teaches you to do well. That's undeniable. But Christianity, for me, was the only religion that taught you can't do it without Jesus. You're imperfect. You can't get yourself out of depression. You've tried. There's therapy, but there's only maintenance mode. There's no overcoming. Jesus says, I've overcome everything, the world, right? So these problems, depression, loneliness, are issues of the world. So if you think about it, that's what it did. What did it for me was trusting the Word of God above our thoughts, trusting that Jesus will do everything for you. That's number one. Number two, when you read the Bible, you cannot read it to understand the Bible, because we as human beings are naturally flawed. What you have to do is you have to read it to accept. So it's not about understanding, it's about acceptance. Right? Just like you teach a kid to do chores, you're not trying. You're actually teaching the silver lining, which is responsibility, discipline. But if you try to explain it to the kid, hey, this is why you need to watch this, because you'll be disciplined, they're not going to understand it.
Yeah.
They have to learn to accept. And as they get older, there's a timing where they're going to say, thank you, Mom, I get what you were trying to teach me X amount of years ago. Likewise, in God's timing, when we just read, we're then able to see, okay, God's going to just drop that nugget in you when He feels your heart is ready for that seed and ready for that nugget.
That's good.
So yeah, that's what I teach people. And that's how I was able to get through the Bible from front to back, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Coney Greek 23 times. So it's not about, understanding. You can't understand it. Our brain is finite, limited. God is infinite. But if you just learn to accept Him, then He'll actually start pouring wisdom into you. And then you'll remain humble. Because a lot of these people, apologetics, I'm sorry to say, are puffed up. Oh, I know this. Did you know? You didn't know about that. But that does nothing for the gospel. That just makes people feel like, okay, you're holier than thou. So what? You know what I'm saying? So we're here to edify. We're not here to divide. So
I think a lot of people they discredit the miracle of God illuminating our hearts and our minds to truth. We just reading, because I've read certain verses a million times, but it was just one day I read it and it was like, bah! And I was like, yo, I never. So I totally agree with you on that, man. You gotta let the Spirit do what He does.
Amen. I read the Bible too, front to back 2 times in prison. So there's a lot of reading, and I started developing these skills to articulate and but still, bro, I had emptiness in my heart. That was the one thing that I could never get rid of. Was this just hole in my heart. And that was something that I would talk to him about. And he was like, bro, that's just part of life. Like, you're always going to feel that because you got the flesh. It's weak, and the enemy plays with that. But that didn't really satisfy why I was feeling that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, but I did grow. I went to anger management, did counseling, all that.
You was trying to fix yourself with external means.
Right.
And even religion, which people will say, is spiritual, but your spirit is still dead. You're just adding on things to make you feel better. I'm curious, how did your gang feel about you becoming a Muslim?
They thought it was weird.
Okay.
Yeah, they keep it real. They were like, yo, what's wrong with you, Johnny? Because the way that I was, so the first 2 years in prison, I didn't program correctly. And that means, like, I didn't know how. I was still tripping, in prison, in California at least, there's no gangs. Like, yes, you're in your gang, but you represent your race more than your gang. It's called a card, right? So you got the Southern Mexicans, you got the blacks, you got Bloods and Crips, but even they got to unite when it comes to, race politics, right? So I'm over here seeing, Asian boys and these different hoods that we beef with. There's bloodshed, 20, 30 years of war. And I now got to be celled up with them and homies. And I just came from YA, which was gangbanging here. No race, no nothing. You just fighting people. So I had to learn, like, bro, this dude shot at my homie. Like, how am I not gonna get him? I'm right here. So I had to kind of let that all die and just be united, and that was tough for me. So I was, just getting write-ups. I was in the hole. I was doing all kinds of stupid stuff, and getting, bad to get more time added, basically. So it was just tough for me. And then I went from that to just calling my homies like, hey, yo, I'm Muslim now, and it's about peace. So they were just like, yo, you tripping for real, bro. You need to get off that whatever you're doing in there, that Pruno. You gotta chill, bro. And I'm just like, man, I'm just trying to be peaceful. But that's the one thing that they noticed was like, yo, Johnny's changing. And it started from prison.
You were searching, sounds like you were searching. What do you think sparked the search? Like, were you feeling depressed? Were you feeling empty? What was going on with you when you was locked up?
I would, I think I was okay, like I said, until I went there and I was like, you know what? Like, why we gotta be cool with these people? Like, why I gotta, like, dang. I lived all my life disrespecting authority. I didn't want people to tell me what to do. I hated my dad. I hated, like, now I'm in here and I still got somebody above me telling me to do something. The dudes who got the keys to the yard, they're like, oh, we can't do that. There's no one-on-ones in here. And I'm like, well, you can't get your feet in. No, you can't. You move as a unit. So it's like, you gotta dead all that. And I'm like, dang. So I started to see, like, people back, like what I stood for, even at that young of an age, was kind of flipped on its head. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, I thought it was my neighborhood against the world, like us versus everybody. That wasn't true. I seen homies being cool with each other. Bro, you been shot and killed your homie, and you're like over here breaking spread with him, and it's like, what's going on here? So right then, I did start feeling that. I was like, bro, like,
what is the point of it?
Exactly. Did I for real do all this just to do this? Like,
No, the older you become, the
like,
more
okay,
painful you
maybe I'm tripping. So I had to
feel.
maybe I'm tripping. Maybe it's just because I'm in prison. Maybe I'm judging. I need to chill. I don't know. I got to learn a little bit more. And then I just started seeing crazy stuff, bro. Like favoritism. I started seeing like, yo, how come you could do this, but this dude can't do that? Like, and I was just like, yo, if we're all one car and one race, where's the respect and all that? Where's the hierarchy and all that? So it was just, it was wild. And from then on, I was like, I felt empty. I would have those thoughts at night, like suicidal thoughts. I contemplated that crazy. And, I was just empty, bro. I was empty.
What is like for a lot of people, and a lot of times because incarcerated folks, they're not allowed to show emotions, because it's detrimental to your life, and also because that's the culture. But what don't people know about what the emotional and mental state of folks who are incarcerated are dealing with? What does the regular world not know? The fact that, so a lot of people think that people wanted to do this, but when you go to prison, you carry at least for the first couple weeks, you carry your seatbelt. Paperwork is involved. And there's a reason because people check paperwork, right? But it's also because you don't speak about the things that you did. Like a real gangster, honestly, even mafia people who I've sat down with, Michael Francis, people like that, they don't like talking about the stuff that they did because it actually haunts them, right? So what you see portrayed in the media is not it. A real gangster is not going to sit there and go, yeah, I smoked this dude and did it, like, because that's the stuff that hurts you. Just like the addict wouldn't be like, yo, I hit the pipe today and I did, you understand? They try to like cover all of that. But when you're glorifying that, actually, we know that it's not, you didn't really live that life. If you really did, no one's proud of robbing somebody and, shooting somebody where it haunts you in your dreams, bro. Like, that's happened to you. You got demons in your dreams pulling you by the ankles type of stuff. Like, it's not, if anyone's who's committed a murder and done things like that, they don't talk about stuff like that. That's not something that blows up. Right? So, but a lot of people are misinformed when they think, well, you're in there and you deserve that, which we do, we deserve, but at the same time, they think we're in there just like glorifying it all. But actually in prison, at least in California, it's very respectful. I learned to be more respectful in prison because there's that mutual aggression. Everybody's killing them. So it's like, if you don't say excuse me when you walk by somebody, it could cause a race riot. If you don't put, if you put your coffee cup or you use this microwave that belongs to somebody else or some other race, that could cause some issues. If you have a
balance and you step into, you know, the Asian side or you step into the black side and you don't mind your own, it's a problem.
Yeah.
So contrary to what other people are saying, you know, that this they're just in there and they're having fun and or whatever it is, like it's not, bro. It's a place where there's a lot of demons are there for sure. There's emptiness there, there's loneliness, there's suicide. And people are, you know, even in the point where it's like they cause death by suicide, meaning like I can't kill myself, so I'm gonna do crazy stuff to make y'all kill me. Like there's that too, and that's how they handle depression too, and loneliness and emptiness. It's a lot, bro. It's a lot.
So you're wrestling, you're feeling empty, you are practicing Islam, you're trying everything. Your release day comes. Do you feel like I'm ready for the world, or what are you feeling like when you exit those gates?
If you want me to be real, I had a crazy intrusive thought. So, you know, I was ready, I had my date, it was coming. And I was like, you know what, I think I should just pop off right now, stab somebody. Because I'm a 2-strike player. If I catch my last strike, and I'll just get washed up.
Yeah.
And that was because I was so afraid. Because what happened with the same dude, he actually was, you know, Muslim, and he got out. He got out, and he was the most respected dude in there. He was most, you know, organized. He was mature, spiritually, mentally, all that. And he said, I'm never gonna come back to this place. Bro, he said that, and like 8 months after his release date, he was back.
Dang.
So that's when I knew it was over for me. I'm not even half the man this dude is. I'm gonna die in there. You know, I'm gonna die in the streets. So I lost all hope.
You were self-sabotage.
Yeah, I was like, I'm good. You know, and of course, you know, my homies were like, nah, and I talked to my homies about this. Like, bro, you gotta get out, bro. There's a lot of money. And at that point, you know, there was like, you know, weed and things coming in now, and people were making money. So that was something I tried to hold on to. And yeah, when I did get out, I tried to buy straight. And I applied everywhere, bro. I sat down with the homies, they were helping me with everything. But you know that little box that says,
Fellas?
right? Tell me what you did. Yeah. It just wasn't working. And, you know, I didn't get no love. Nobody called me back. So I was bad at that. I said, see, I knew it, man. Like, something I did when I was 12 and 16, they're not even giving, I did my time. They're not even giving me a chance. So you know what? I was like, heck it, you know, I'm gonna do what I want to do. So I immediately told my homies to plug me in. Started making like 10,000 and 20,000 and 30 and 40,000 a month. And again, I turned all of that into snot, basically, and drugs, and women, buying cars, living in fancy, going to Vegas every week. It's crazy stuff. And you know, it just again did not solve the issue of emptiness inside my heart.
Yeah. So you didn't try, you know, every one of the 5 senses, you know, taste, see, smell, touch, hear, like nothing is giving you a sense of value, of purpose, or worth. What is your day-to-day looking like? Where are you getting to the end of yourself? How's that coming about?
So I think I was just, empty, and I was like, again, self-sabotage mode. I'm like, I'm just gonna die. So YOLO lifestyle, right? Like, I'm gonna just do whatever I want. And I don't care. And I was literally just existing. I felt like I was like having an outer body experience every day. Like it wasn't me. I could be in a room with 100 homies that would be, but I feel like I'm still alone. You know? So I was just like waiting to die. And I kept having that thought, oh, it's because you don't got enough money. You know, it's 30K. I'm like, man, I don't have enough. So we planned actually to rob somebody, well-known drug dealer in that area. And yeah, the plan went sour basically. Because I was supposed to go to the right, he was supposed to go to the left. My homie, I went to the right, but he stepped in front of me. So then I just went to the left. 3 shots rang out, and my friend got shot. So if he didn't step in front of me, I would have been shot that day. He died in my arms. And so that just, like, I thought I was depressed, but then now I had survivor's guilt on top of that. Because I was like, yo, that's your fault. And so that was plaguing me. I was doing more drugs to, self-medicate. And then my mom actually, in prison, she was, received salvation when I was in prison about 3-4 years before I got out. So she started coming with the verses, and I was like, man, stop talking to me, because first and foremost, we're Chinese, right? Yes, I'm Muslim, but I'd rather be Muslim than Christian, right? I would have these thoughts, right? And so I just looked down at my mom. I was like, Mom, you're like religion hopping right now. You're going from Buddhism and Taoist Buddhist to now Christian with white God, and I didn't know anything about it. Right? So, and I didn't listen to her, but she came during that time when our homie died. Within a span of a week, 3 people passed away that were very dear to me. The homie that died in my arms. There was another kid who hung himself in prison. Sent me a cryptic kite, right, telling me, hey, bro, when I see you, think about me. See you in the mountains, crazy stuff, and I didn't know. 3 days later, he hangs himself. And then we have my other homie who I courted, youngster, just like me, broken home, same, speaking Mandarin, all that. He gets shot, freeway shooting, basically headshot, dies on the scene. So, within a week and a half, that's when I was just like, bro, death for sure is around the corner for me. I'm about to die, and it's just horrible. But again, I didn't have no outlet, so I'm like, I'm gonna just go deeper, right? But my mom, she said something that really unlocked everything. She said, it'll be really sad, Johnny, if you were born into this life, growing up in the PJs, and you had nothing, the homies all died, and you then die. And not only that, but end up in a place of like eternal damnation. She was saying hell, but like in a nice way. I was like, it made me think, it stopped me, it kind of snapped me out of it for a second. That's the first time I actually thought a little bit about my future, thought about my life, thought about, is there something more than life to just messing around and being a knucklehead like this? Is it more than sleeping with this woman and doing drugs and all that? It's got to be more than this year. And after that, she brought me to church basically.
So mom planted seed.
100%.
And what made you decide to go to church?
So she actually had her car broke down. So I didn't decide. She was in San Bernardino. She was like, her car was overheating, and she was a deacon. My mom speaks 3 different languages, English, Mandarin, and Korean. She grew up in Korea, or Chinese. So she was like calling me frantic. My brother was still in prison. My brother also did 14 years. So 2 bad kids, And she called me. My dad was still doing his alcoholic stuff, being a bad husband and all that. So she only had me. And I was like, you know what? She's an hour and some change away. Let me do this for her. So I just drove to her, picked her up, and I told her in the car, Mom, I'm not staying at this church. I know what they're about. They're gonna try to, indoctrinate me and all this stuff. So she's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, I have to translate. I'm late for like this thing. So I take her to church. I roll down the window, bro, and I smell my favorite food, black bean noodles. Being a prisoner, bro, that's the one thing. Mail, commissary, and food, basically. So that, to me, when I smelled that, I was like, man, this smells fire. But I was trying to be the gangster. I was like, man, I don't care. So the pastor was like, hey, Johnny, good to meet you. I heard a lot about you. And he's Asian. And he's like, we made some homemade black bean noodles. And he said, would you like me to package some and send you on your way? And I felt like, being Asian, bro, we break bread. Like, food, family style is a thing. So I was like, man, that's hella disrespectful. If I'm just gonna take his stuff and then leave.
Man doing highway shooting, but feels like I don't want to be disrespectful with this. That's crazy.
Yeah, go ahead. So I'm just like, okay, let me just, it was just something in me. And I feel like it was obviously God. And at that moment, it was like, you should go and pray this thing. Because this dude didn't seem like the dude was to be cheap. He was clean cut, wear a suit and all that, but he didn't force anything on me, right? And so I went in, I ate the food, it was amazing, right? And I just sat there and I felt like a lot of love from that, just through the food, which is crazy. And then he proceeded to ask me some questions. And he's like, do you know what sin is? And, are you a sinner? And then I felt like that was a loaded question. So I was like, man, of course I'm a sinner, bro. Look at me, I'm tatted down, head to toe, and I know, like, in the body, in the Bible, it says the body is a temple and you don't do all that. And then he blew me away by saying, that's not true. He said sin is not, committing crimes and doing evil things. Those are symptoms, byproducts of the original sin. And I was like, what? Because I never heard it like that. We had prison chaplains, we had priests, we had chapels in prison. And, you would go there from time to time just to get time out of your cell and stuff like that. But everyone was always telling me, sin is an action, you must repent. You gotta do good, right? And you gotta try in your heart. God knows your heart. But he said, like, man, you're born to be. Just like you didn't choose to be Chinese. You were born that way. It was inherited. Your father, his father. He said, Adam sinned. Adam messed up. And the whole world came from men. Adam sinned there, Cain was the first murderer. Nobody taught him how to murder. There was a seed of sin planted inside of them through the fall. And that passed down to you. So just like you didn't choose to be a sinner, you didn't choose to be, or just like you didn't choose to be Jesus, you didn't choose to be a sinner. And that's why you're feeling that emptiness. And that rocked my world. I'm like, wait, how does he know I'm empty? Because I ain't never shared that with nobody. So I was like, you know something.
You put language to what you experienced.
Yeah, you humanized it. And he said, what you're doing in the life that you live, even though everybody's saying it's abnormal, atypical, is normal. Like, what? So I'm normal? He said, man, you're not what people say you are. You're perfect. I said, I'm perfect. What? And I was like, I'm not perfect, Pastor. You may not know the things that I did, or like, he said, no, I'm just like you. I said, wait, hold up. You're this clean-cut pastor from Korea, never gangbanged in your life, looked like you wouldn't hurt a fly, but you're telling me you're the same as me. And then he said, in your standard and my standard, sure, we got differences, but under the standard of God, we all fall short. Man, that's right. So he said, I'm a sinner and you're a sinner too. I stand in front of God as a sinner, and you stand in front of God as a gang member sinner. We're both going to hell. So he said, you really got to think about that, Johnny. You're a person who trusted yourself all of your life. How did that work out for you? You ended up in prison, gangs, and all that, right? So, have you ever tried to attempt suicide? To the court? They said, and it's because you were this imperfect person. You're trying to be perfect. That's what you do, all these other things, he said. And you kept falling short. So when you keep failing as an imperfect person, trying to produce perfection, of course you're going to end up empty. Because you keep failing. So you live in this roller coaster lifestyle. You say, sin, and you're happy and you're sad. Because when you're doing good, you're happy. When you mess up, sad, happy, sad. And I was like, this dude is literally dissecting my heart. And nobody has ever said, and he's not even from America. We're speaking through translators right now. So
this is all translated conversation.
Translated.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's hitting me in a way where it's like, what? And so I never heard that before. All the books that I read, all that. Never.
First of all, shout out to the translator, whoever that was. Shout out to that translator, man. Wow. So your mind is blown. Like, is this your gospel moment? Is this what is happening to you internally right now?
So yeah, I felt an inkling of hope, which I never felt. I felt like, yo, this dude, he knows something. And this is why people have mentors. Because before I'll be like, nah, you're your own master. What you talking about? Nobody knows you like you. You gotta beat your own life. That's what the world teaches you. You gotta trust your thoughts, follow your gut. You know what I'm saying? You're the master of your own destiny. But I started to see like, yo, this dude knows me better than me. And I was like, this is crazy. But wait, and I was having that struggle. Should I listen to this dude? What is he gonna say next? Like I was just kind of waiting for him to give me that but moment, right? But you gotta follow the commandments, but you gotta convert, but whatever it is, he didn't talk about none of that. He said, he led with, I'm just like you, and I'm a person who, when I trust my thoughts, I also fall into lust. I also fall into drugs and alcohol and things like that. But that's why I learned to distrust my thoughts. And that was so profound because as gang members, as the world in general, as these motivational speakers and everything you see on social media, is always believe in yourself, follow your heart. But when I did that, my heart was wicked. My mind, I have intrusive thoughts. So of course I'm gonna live up and down roller coasters.
Right.
So he was saying you gotta learn to distrust your thoughts. And then of course I asked him, well then what do I trust if I don't trust my thoughts? He said that's why God gave us the word. Because think about it, he said, the word, even just a regular book, not even the Bible, the words don't change. They stay the same. So something that stays the same is trustworthy. But your thoughts, one minute you're happy, next minute you're angry. It keeps changing. So he said, they lie to you, it's deceitful. You can't trust your thoughts. And I was like, damn. So that kind of sparked a little bit for me to be like, maybe I need to get into this word. Because it's like, I don't know the word, so how do I combat it? And then he told me, and he said, Satan, you know, there's a famous story, he says in the Bible, where Satan tempts Jesus. And I said, okay. And he says, you know how Jesus fought him? He wasn't like, he wasn't like, you know, levitating and, you know, having angels fight. He said, it is written. And I was like, okay. And he said, as it is written, it is written, it is written. So Johnny, when Satan comes with your thoughts, because you want to live, but Satan tells you to die, right? And the only way to fight that is through the Bible, what is written. And if you don't know the Bible, he said, that's like stepping in the ring with Mike Tyson. You're going to get demolished, you know, with no training. So he said, I hope that you can learn the word. And then after that, he led into something crazy. He said, you know, you're perfect. And I'm like, I'm not perfect. He said, let's think about this for a second, man. You look at yourself, you're not perfect. But the Bible says you're actually perfect, and not only temporary, but forever. And I said, show me, right? You gotta show me the paperwork, right? And he showed me Hebrews 10:14, which said, for by one offering you have perfected forever them that are saints. King James Version. And so I was like, what does this mean? And really read the Bible like that. And he said, let's break it down. So he said, one offering. Who is this one offering? Jesus Christ. Everybody knows that. So that's true. I know that Jesus came to that first and atheists know that. But he said, through that one offering, he has perfected. He said, yes, you have a GED education, but even you know what tense is perfected in. And I said, past tense. He said, so if this past tense, it means it's already completed. You're already perfect. It means temporarily or forever. And it says forever, and perfected forever. So he says, nothing is forever in this world, but eternally is forever, like eternity. So you're perfect eternally, and then you're also sanctified, past tense, which means made holy. But the issue, he says, is your thoughts tell you no. Your thoughts tell you you're a gamer. Your thoughts tell you that you're never going to change. Your thoughts tell you you're empty and you're lonely and you're depressed and you should live however you want. And your thoughts tell you you're going to go to hell. But the word of God that never changes tells you that you're righteous, perfect, forever, and holy. Which one are you going to trust in? Challenge you. And I was like, dang, if I trust my thoughts, I'm going to live miserably. But if I trust his word that doesn't change and it's from God, then maybe that's the smarter route. So when I trusted that, it was as if like this weight was lifted off of my shoulders. Because I know I'm going to hell for the things that I do that I'm not proud of. But he said, you know, where do perfect people go? And I was like, dang, go to heaven. So for me, I was like, it was almost like comical to me. I'm like, I'm a gang member. I did crazy heinous things. And this is the first person that ever told me that through Jesus, I'm going to heaven. Crazy.
You hadn't stepped into your perfection. You hadn't accepted it. And Christ is like, here it is. But you were like, nah, I'm too messed up. I can't. And that's the first time someone made it clear, nah, all you gotta do is it's right here.
So through that, I was just so thankful, and I was like, man, and you know, my mom was up next to me, she was crying.
Oh man,
she was crying, and I was tearing up too. And then I said, but I just got one question, Pastor. What about my sins? Like, what? Because I remember my sins. You know, I know that Jesus washed them, but he said, well, he washed all of your sins. And what does all of them mean? And I said, like past, present, future, every single one, right? And he said, yeah. He said, he didn't do a half job, right? He watched everything. But, and then of course I was like, so then what's going to stop me from sinning however I want now? That I could just be like, yo, I'm perfect. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to sin however I want. And then he said, I'm married, for example, right? Why did I get married? He said, to deepen my relationship with God. And I said, sure. I'm sorry, deepen my relationship with my wife, he said. And he says, so prior to me meeting my wife, it was a beautiful woman walks up to me. He's like, I can date her because I'm single. But now that I'm in a relationship, even if one of these beautiful sisters comes up to me and she's my type, let's say, she wants to be sinful things, lustful things, can I be like, yeah, let's do it? No, I'm gonna think about my wife because of our relationship and because of her, even if I want to, I can't. Do you understand? And I said, okay. And he said, so my point is, why do we receive salvation? Why did God die for you and purchase you with blood to have community with you, to have a relationship with you? Are you just going to, sin when Satan comes and tells you, hey, let's do this? Now you'll think about your father. And I was like, dang, so he conceptualized it for me to a point where I understood it. And he's like, that's why, John, you gotta come out of your thoughts. Because sin doesn't just come out of anything. People try to solve the behavioral aspect. But behavior comes from thoughts, which bleeds into your heart, and then it affects behavior. That's good. So it's like, thoughts, lustful thought will give you lustful feelings, and then lustful action. People trying to fix the action, but they're not cutting it at the root.
Yo, you broke it down like this is what he told you, which is true. But at the same time, you re-delivered it in a way that we can tell it's ingrained in you, right? Like this is what you do now, and like I just want like for real, like I just feel like I think it's important. I know you've heard this before. I'm sure you hear it all the time, but I think it's important to reiterate the fact that you was built for this, bro. Like, no, for real. Like, I was telling my on my Instagram, talking about Samson and how Samson came from the Sorek Valley. Sorek means grape. And it's like, why did God put the man who wasn't allowed to drink from the grapevine in the middle of Grapevine Valley? And it was because he was like, it's like a message for us to say, I don't want you to leave the world. I want you in it to affect it with everything that I've shown you and taught you. And man, like, you are the living, breathing testament of everything that you've been through. God uses beauty for ashes. Like, he just takes it and says, I'm going to shape this in a way. Because, bro, I've been looking for Johnny Chains forever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been like, where is these who, the ladies who, I was doing a, what do you call it, Back on Fig podcast with T-Rail, and he was talking about, he said, man, I got these prostitutes who are coming in. Do you want to be on a podcast with them, or do you want to do your own thing? And I was like, let me do my own thing, because I don't know how this is going to go. But I wanted to talk to those ladies afterwards. And I got to talking to one, and it was like, the world would look at them and be like, y'all, wow, y'all on Fig, y'all on some crazy stuff. And one of them is, famous rapper's daughter, key, but she said, man, I need the gospel, so I want to tap in. And it's just like, if there's no Johnny Chains in those spaces and places, and then you can reach somebody who's straight from the suburbs, obviously, but there's people who would be able to re-articulate everything you said. Right? How have you seen God use that, like your whole life experience, this moment of transformation for you? Like, how have you seen God go from one moment of like, the pastor shares this truth with you to like, now?
I mean, God has really blessed everything that I've been doing. And I think it's because of the relatability. And I was just told, like, you just have to share the gospel. But I've learned that God doesn't want us to push it onto people. Rather, he needs relatability first. Because everybody, because of Satan, how he's groomed us from birth, these walls that it's hard to break down. And they themselves don't even want to have walls like that. Many of us who are frustrated that we're frustrated, or angry that we're angry. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's because Satan has really ingrained that inside of us. So we have to kind of unlearn a lot of that stuff. So I've learned, like, because I've been there, like, I don't like people preaching all up in my ear. You know what I'm saying? Like, and judging me for this, that, and the third when they themselves have a log in their eye type stuff. So I've learned, like, I only share my testimony And it's like it's like us Asians are good for all you can eat buffets. We just like I'm gonna give you what it is, and you take what you eat. But in this way, it weaves into them, and they feel that authenticity because the frequency of like being real is felt universally. Right? So I feel like people truly need to hear the gospel, but not in a way that we've been taught, where it's like push it onto them, break their arm, even if you gotta save them type stuff. Good. Rather, it's like, no, I'm gonna be relatable, right? Like we hung out, right? And we went and ate Heidi Lao and all that.
You put me on. That was my first time having that. Right. Yeah. You put me on. Robot bringing me food and the whole nine. It was crazy, y'all. But anyway,
so but never pushed it on, right? Like you're Christian, I'm Christian. Everybody has a different walk, but I feel like we all have that interconnection through sin, right? Interconnected. So we just gotta continuously be real with people. Like you cannot cast out hate with hate. You gotta cast out despair and hate with hope and love. So in order for me to plant, I just tell them, listen, I invite people to this dialogue. Most of the time it's a monologue. You know what Jesus did for you, Jesus? Like you talking at people. But for me, I'm just like, listen, this is what Jesus did for you, and that's what God has done in my life, right? I just tell them what God has done in my life. And I've felt depression, loneliness, anger, whatever. And I become vulnerable to them. So that when you're vulnerable to people, they then have this launching pad of like, okay, I got a safe space now where I could just be vulnerable too. Because we're all, especially as men, like we got to show that we're bravado and we're men. But it's like, no, we go through stuff too.
I love that because we're relational people. And like you said, it's like, man, the heart is soil. Don't jackhammer the seed. You know what I mean? Like the soil may be rocky. You might have to get some rocks out of it. You know what I mean? And everyone's just like, And I think that's probably why that first interview went so crazy viral, was because it snuck up on me. You know what I mean? I'm just sitting there like, man, this story is incredible. What you been through, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yo, I don't know if dude know the Lord or not, but I'm like, no, you know the Lord. But I can imagine somebody who's far from God watching that, not feeling judged, not feeling like they couldn't relate to you, but feeling like, man, he's telling my story, but the ending is different. Right. And I think that's what's beautiful about what you do is, man, you let people know the ending is different. People have a lot of questions and curiosities about some of the places you've been, some of the things you've done. But man, like you said, like the pastor told you, man, whether if you've been locked up for 15 years or you just looking at porn on the internet, like
sin is sin.
Sin is sin.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, you talk about like you and your father's relationship and just like the tension y'all had and the trauma that it had on you. What's that look like after your relationship with the Lord?
So much better. So pastor told me basically to apologize to my father. Me being the victim, apologizing to the aggressor. Bananas, bro. It didn't make sense to me. But I realized that we were all interconnected through the struggle. How I saw my father was kind of like, he was like this ship in a storm, basically. And it was getting rocked by this crazy, waves, and he got smashed into the rocks, right? And I realized that, bro, I'm the same boat. I'm in the same boat. And we're both fighting this storm, which is Satan. And so I was able to humanize my father. Like, hey, just like I struggle with trusting my thoughts and having a crazy past and all the trauma, my dad was the same way. So we're actually more similar than we are different. He just, was masking everything through drinking. I was doing it through gangbanging. I was doing it, through other means. But the end result was still emptiness, loneliness, depression, and being without God. So I apologized to my father, bro. I said, I'm sorry, for being a horrible son, ruining your American dream because he's an immigrant. And bro, he stopped and then he started crying and he said, no, I'm sorry. I came and I, ruined your life, beat your mom, beat you, large part of why you're in prison and in gangs is probably my fault. I'm sorry, son. And, 20 some odd years of pain, bro, it just dissipated. And we cried light our eyes up. And now, me and my dad comes to church, we go mace to the church. I mean,
That's great.
yeah, he's gonna be in my live event September 14th, you know, so it's amazing how just a simple forgiveness basically really bleeds into everything. You know, so yeah, he's got his own, he's saved now, got his own testimony.
God, that's crazy. God is good. It's clear, like, you know, God has gifted you. I know you read a lot when you got in prison. I know you studied, but you communicate well. Were you a good communicator then? Is that something that you grew into? Like, how did that transpire?
So I was never a good communicator. I can attribute it to obviously God giving me the heart to communicate well, but I've noticed that what I've learned was the mentors around me have always taught me one thing, and I think this is pivotal and the foundation of Christianity, was to think about other people first. So when I'm sitting here and I'm communicating and I'm listening, first off, you have to have receptive skills, meaning you gotta work on listening before you speak. Because otherwise it becomes a monologue, right? So I always try to hear not what that person is saying, but where is the position of their heart. For example, if somebody's like, I read the Bible 40 times, and then you already know it. Immediately they have like an egotistical prideful heart. It's not a judgment, it's more of like, okay, I see where he's coming, he's leading with that. Why is he leading with that? So I've learned to think about others above myself. And that's why I don't get into debates. Because I'm like, okay, let's see where they're coming from. If this person is saying, how do you know God wrote the Bible? That's proof that they think that they're smarter than God. It's not that they're saying that, because why does that even actually matter? To them it matters because their heart is like, okay, I can figure out God. So show me, prove to me that, then I'll believe, which is not faith. You get what I'm saying? So we learn how to communicate in this way, where Proverbs literally tells you, be slow to speak, quick to listen. And so I've just learned to always be like, all right, let me go and give them the benefit of the doubt. Because there's always the human nature underlying. People like to process and externally process, right? They're just telling you everything. But if you've learned to just listen, bro, you can never misinterpret silence. You can never misconstrue. You know what I'm saying? So
that's a bar.
So that's what I've learned.
That's hard. We do this other segment, get to this other segment real quick, but before I do that, some of the stuff you're talking about, because I know there's probably a lot of guys watching this now who, we just are not, men don't get to the issues of the heart. We don't communicate all that type of stuff. We think it makes us tough. We think it means we're not a man. But we talking to somebody who shot at folks. We talking to somebody who done hard time. And you can still speak naturally about your emotions, about the heart, about the love for God. What would you say to guys out there who, are trying to process all of this?
Sure. I would say it's okay. It's okay to feel like that, because I was there, and it's normal to feel like that. But there's also a reasoning why we feel like that, because Satan doesn't want y'all to open up so that he could keep you in that confinement. You know what I mean? Yes, I've been to prison, and maybe not everybody has been to prison, but we're all prisoners of something. Right? Prisoners to sin, prisoners to addiction, whatever it is, right? Lust, jealousy, envy, whatever. So at the end result, again, we're all interconnected through sin. And that's why you had mentioned, getting to the issues of the heart, right, the root. I built a community called Core of the Heart, literally, because we get to that, and you can remain anonymous. We do Discord for free, and so it's just that we need community. Women have community, men have community too, but through sports or whatever. But we need these types of Christian communities where it's gospel-centered, and we're able to truly be vulnerable as men and be like, listen, I am struggling with this, and not have that judgment, and have verses, scripture to help us climb out of that. And that's what I've dedicated my whole life to, is building community. That's why we're doing the events, is because I want to bring the community together and just grow together, because man, the youth nowadays as well is feeling that. And there's no guidance. It's all, social media is their guidance. Google is their teacher. It's crazy, So
that's dope. All right, we're gonna tap in to the segment we call Underwater, man, where we throw people underwater. You know what I'm saying? It's the deep end, and it's you sink or swim, bro. I'm gonna throw the questions at you, you sink or swim. You know what I'm saying? So You know what I mean? Let's see how you program. You know what I'm saying? All right, so everybody, they go to prison. They say, man, I ain't turning down nothing. You know, I'm a tough guy. You know, whoever want to fight, just fight. I ain't gonna roll it up. But I know there's some scary moments. So, tell us about a scary moment for you where you was like, man, I don't know about this.
Yeah, the first week.
That's for B-side subscribers right there. That's what that answer's for. So if you become a B-side subscriber, you get access to that answer plus way more, man. There's so much content, so many tools, so much community behind that wall. Become a subscriber, join the family. I appreciate the work you do, man. Like, it's super dope, man. We honored to have you. What you got coming up next for anybody who wants to know? You know, you talked about you know, the community that you started, or anything else that you want people to know.
Yeah, I'm doing a live event in LA, September 14th, depending on when this airs. But yeah, I want people to pull up. It's like 400 people. See, we're pretty much at capacity, but we can still open up some more stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, we're gonna do a live show. We're doing a sermon there. My head pastor, the one who saved me, is gonna do like 30-minute speech. My family's gonna be there. There's gonna be music, refreshments. So yeah, that's on September 13th in LA, Glendale area. And yeah, I'm just doing Bible studies too. We go from Genesis to Revelations every Saturday, 12 p.m.
Follow this man online, man. Follow him on the gram. He stay with the heat.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so, just that, and I'm gonna be traveling.
Okay.
And hopefully me and, you will be doing some more
Oh,
stuff.
we got to, we gotta do like a whole prison tour.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? That would be crazy. I'm putting it out there right now. If you're watching this, get us to do it. You know what I mean? But, man, love it, bro. Thank you, man. Appreciate you for everything. I got you, bro. Respect. Yeah, man. It's hard.
When I first came to the Lord, it was very rough. If I'm gonna be all the way real, man, when I first came to the Lord, bro, I gave up everything, but I kept smashing girls. To be honest with you, I found a lot of my identity in women.
So, wait a minute. Because you probably have some unique challenges.
Oh, man.
Your wife, so Jackie was a whole stud.
The whole stud.
A whole
Not
lesbian.
a half stud.
You're a womanizer.
Oh, yeah.
Jackie's a stud.
Oh, man.
You meet Jesus, she meets Jesus, and then y'all end up together?
Yeah.
That sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Break that down. How does that even happen?
Man, you asked a really good question. You like the hip-hop Oprah. And a lot of times people ask me, man, how is it being married to somebody that used to be gay? But very rarely do people ask her, how is it being married to some man that used to sleep with so many women? Wow.
It was the deep one. Work and pray.
All right. I usually don't do the whole intro type of thing. I usually just get it jumping. But as of late, I felt the need to just make sure people understand who they're dealing with. You know what I mean? So, who y'all dealing with is a lot of things. Because he's a diamond, as we all are. He's multifaceted. So, a poet, an author, right? We got a book now. An apologist, an evangelist, a husband, and a father, and a bondservant of the Lord Jesus Christ. Man, listen, you already know who he is, and if you don't, you've been under a rock, because him and his wife have an incredible legacy that they're creating all over the world. And so, man, I have the pleasure of none other than having Preston Perry in the building.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, man.
See, I was stuttering trying to get that one going.
No, it's all good, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. Mama, I didn't made it. I'm on Lecrae show.
You're here.
My mama gonna think I'm somebody now.
Get out of here, bro.
Thanks for having me on, bro. I appreciate it, man.
So it's crazy because it's like historically, I don't remember where we met, but I do remember a thread a thread of similarity, and that's Brian Dye in Chicago.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So for a lot of people who don't know, the Legacy Conference
Bonded us all together.
Yeah. So it's funny.
Sit up.
Ryan reminds me this every time. I always forget. He said, "You know, you named the conference the Legacy Conference, right?" I said, "Yeah." He was like, "Yeah, you named it." I didn't even remember this, but
I had some stories with Brian about how like Legacy probably wouldn't have been started if he wasn't around.
I remember being super green, like I didn't know nothing else. I'm just there. I'm in all the crazy parts of Chicago.
Brian, you have you in the places you're gonna die.
You feel me? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just serving the Lord. But I remember, I do remember him kind of pointing you out and talking about you. And I think he mentioned Jackie. Y'all weren't married, I think, when I met y'all.
No.
Y'all weren't even dating. Y'all weren't even dating. No. Okay. And so I just always felt like if Brian was introducing me to somebody, they were either, it was either like triage or rehab. It's one of the two. It's like either he's pulling bullets out of somebody trying to make sure that they're gonna be right, or it's like rehab is somebody who's like, yo, this cat, he was there, but now he's here. And so I don't know, which one were you, bro? Was he where were you at in your journey when you connected with him in Chicago?
So man, I met Brian. For context, Brian is a urban missionary or whatever who likes a lot of knucklehead dudes from Southside Chicago, Westside Chicago. And man, I met Brian. Man, a lot of people don't know. I met Brian when I was in saved before I met Jackie. Before I was hooping at the top floor of a church in this community called Little Village.
Okay.
And the dude who led me to Christ, his name was Gary. We used to all the shorties or whatever that he was like walking with to go hoop. And I was at the top floor, New Year's Eve, I'll never forget it. And the end walked this white man. And this is like one of the
in the hood.
So this is like for people who don't know, like Little Village is historically a Latin King neighborhood, like a Hispanic gang neighborhood. And it was like not too far, it was like a gang, it was like a group of GDs, gangster disciples, black gangs, and they was worn with like Latin. So it was a very dangerous neighborhood. Okay. Just kind of, make it short. Yeah. And in walks this white dude, 12 o'clock at night, and I'm like, yo, it's midnight. It's midnight. We hooping at midnight. You know what I'm saying? Around midnight. And he walking with white dude, and I'm like, who's this white guy? And everybody's like, this Brian Dye, he's the urban missionary, yada, yada, yada. I chopped it up with him that night. That's the first time I met him. I was like 17. And then, when I gave my life to the Lord, a couple of years later, probably I think I gave my life to the Lord when I was like 19. And then around 20, I started doing poetry. The poetry kind of like kicked off on YouTube. And, I was just church hopping. I didn't have a church home. And Brian came in my life. I was like, yo, I see that you're a leader in the city. Your name's kind of growing, in the Christian community. But you need a church home. You need somebody to disciple. And so that's when, he came in my life. Wow. And at first I was just weirded out because I didn't go to church with white people, I didn't live around white people. And exposed to him. Yeah, he was kind of like popping up to my shows. And I was like, yo, white guy following me around everywhere. Someone said, you want to disciple me? And, and I told him, I don't trust you. Like, why you follow me? Yeah. And he was just like, man, I just want to just love you like a brother. And so I kind of opened up to him and then, we go out there. So, okay. That's kind of the story. Yeah, the backdrop. It's so funny. I have such a similar experience because in my mind, when I first encountered a group of Christians, I was like, man, what is wrong with y'all? What are y'all doing? Why y'all offering me free pizza? What's the catch? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, what's the catch? Y'all trying to bless me? What's happening here, bro? Like, I don't understand why y'all being so nice to me. Yeah, it was weird. It was weird. The thing he had working on his side is that he lived in the middle of the hood, bro. And I was like, that was weird for me because he wasn't a white dude that acted like black. He's like, no, you're not a real white guy who lives like in the hood. You know what I'm saying? And so like normal dude. And so that intrigued me. Brian would be considered
It's cold. Isn't cold good?
Trailer trash or something. If he lived in Detroit or something. Brian be outside in some slides and some white socks.
He don't act like a typical hood black dude at the same time. He don't act like a typical like middle class white guy. You know what I'm saying?
Brian's he definitely like the white dude from Chicago, Wisconsin type vibes. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
what's crazy is he said he was trailer trash. And if he was with Brian, he would not be offended by that.
At all. Not at all. Probably probably be like, yeah, he probably be like, yeah. I love Brian, man. He's always been involved in you know, he's had a hand in a lot of people's life, mine included, you know what I mean? And just, you know, he's like one of my good friends, and I almost moved to Chicago for that very reason, you know what I'm saying? Because I was stupid, honestly. No, I'm just playing. But because I just wanted to serve the Lord, and I didn't realize how bad it was. So it was just a normal life.
That's why you was walking around like, oh, I'm just in Chicago, where's the pizza?
Well, not even like that, but more so just like, I would go to any hood USA. And so my brain wasn't thinking like the way people talk about it. Like, I was there all the time.
If you used to the hood in the South, and so if you go to another city, it was just the hood. Especially if you you're around people that you respect and you know they can protect you.
But I will say this, Chicago was way more concentrated, full of chaos than I had seen before. So I didn't realize it was like block after block after block. You grew up in this. So I got experience with living in different cities where it's not as concentrated. It's like, it's a pocket here, then you go way across town, it's a pocket here, then you go over here, it's a pocket here. But it's not just like, I feel like Chicago is like, the people are like a quarter, the city's a dime. And the quarter's sitting on top of the dime, and everyone's trying to like figure it out. So So a lot of y'all have seen my vulnerability and seen some of my deep end moments where I'm sharing my deepest, darkest times, or some of my most important times in my life. And this podcast is where I have guests come on and do the exact same thing. So you're gonna see guests here, and you're gonna hear aspects of their life that you would have never heard before, because they're giving you the deep end moments of their life. So I'm excited for you to see them, and we can all be vulnerable together as a community. See them. So you just saying you didn't grow up Christian. So give us a little bit about growing up in Chicago for you. Like what was that life like?
Man, I describe my life in Chicago as like a beautiful tragedy. I think it was beautiful. I think I was a typical bad kid, we all going around doing bad stuff, and but at the same time, my neighborhood was beautiful, because it was filled with like it's a rich, close-knit community. So I grew up in a neighborhood called Roseland. It's far south.
Okay.
It's south side, and so we call it the Hunters.
Oh, the Wild Hunters.
The Wild Hunters.
The Wild Hunters.
So
shout out to my girl Keena from the Wild Hunters. You watching me? Shout out to
So
Keena.
all my family is from an area called Roseland. We grew up on a street called 117th in Michigan.
Okay.
And so 117th State, 117th Michigan. And so all my family, from my mom's side and my dad's side, my mom and my dad met when they were 15 on that same block.
Okay.
So both of my grandparents on both sides literally lived directly across the street from each other. And so I have so much history on that particular block. And so growing up, it was just, my mom and my dad, they divorced when I was 5. And so from 5 to 11, I didn't see my dad. And so my mom, we just moved a lot. It was all on the south side of Chicago. It was rough. The man that raised me, my Uncle Stan, he was a radio personality. He started a radio station called 106 Jam. He was big in Chicago. He ended up getting murdered when I was 11.
Wow. So that had to have a profound effect on you. That's the man that's raising you.
Yeah, it
So
did.
did you process that at the time? Like, what did that do?
No, for me, man, I think it made me very angry. I started to get into a lot. One, I was upset that I didn't have a father in the home, right? And I was also upset that, the man that I looked up to, the man that was pouring into me the most, was taking away the bottom and taking away from me. My Uncle Stan, somebody set him up on David Cookie, And so I'm growing up with just extreme identity issues, not really having a father in the home. My father's figure dies, and then all my cousins around me, they start to crash, And Chicago is rough. And then you talk about that concentrated neighborhood, walking up down the street every day, it's hard, because a lot of people don't even realize why it's so concentrated, why so many people stacked on top of one another. But in the early 90s, they told you not to tear a lot of the high rises down in Chicago. And what gentrification did was it took, the gangster disciples who lived in high rises, they had to move into city
Did it
blocks
back a little bit?
to mingle with other gangs.
A rival gang.
Rival gang. So you see all this stuff on YouTube about like O-Block and these people warn one another. It's because, man, in the 90s, you told that was going to happen when y'all didn't care about how black people was displaced in the city of Chicago, gentrification. So you had to walk through rival gang neighborhood all the time. And it was
So
like
sorry,
rival
fangirl.
So the enemy on the next block, like literally like dropping the halfway from you. Yeah. And so it was rough, man. And so like in Chicago, you either have to, especially in the city, you gotta become a monster or you gotta move, right? In a lot of ways. Or, be very productive in other things like sports. Right. And so man, it was rough, man. Real rough.
You so
I was not too bad, mate.
That was good. You were great.
Ne?
Great.
dad isn't around.
Good is an understatement. You were great.
Crazy.
The guy before you is kept it moving.
No.
Look up to male while
I
he gets
moved a lot.
and now you're trying to process all this. Obviously, this trauma going on. I like very similar situation for you and me. Like single parent household. My dad was dealing with his addiction or his incarceration. My uncles were like the men I looked up to the most. They weren't murdered, but they were like in and out of prison. Gangs and so on, drugs, so on and so forth. I feel like I was, for whatever reason, maybe obviously it was God in some ways, like, protecting me from a lot, but also, I knew I was unique in some kind of capacity. I don't know what it was. It wasn't like I could look at myself and someone else and say, oh, I'm going to be this, or I'm going to be that, but I just felt like something is unique about me. Did you ever have that sense that like, man, I have a drive that maybe my peers don't have, or there's something in me
Before Christ or in Christ?
Let's say before. Like, did you, or were you just running with the crowd?
Now, if you ever meet any of my crazy cousins, because my cousins are wild boys, they'll always tell you, we can Preston do this. Preston do this. And I think I was literally talking, I was like, serve the Lord. Sure. But growing up, I was different. And but you had to really get to know me to know that I was very different than a lot of people around me. Like I had a unique love for nature. Okay. And also too, when I was in 6th grade, I kept fighting class. And so my school assigned mentors to all the bad kids before that was like your last chance for the senior alternative school. Mm-hmm. And I was in 6th grade and she was like, you need an outlet, like why are you so angry? And I wrote something and she was like, wow, like, this is beautiful. I think that you're a poet. So she said, can you write me a poem? I wrote a poem and she started to cry. And that was the first time I was like, oh, this little dude from the hood made somebody like emotional, like my words impacted people.
Yeah.
Let's see how he was now.
Big thing at that time. And so she gave me books.
We're done.
Yeah, we're done.
Thank you.
First African American poet, female poet to win a Nobel Peace Prize, and she was like, she actually grew up right on the west side of Chicago. And I was like, wow. And so that intrigued me. So I fell in love with language in 6th grade. And so I think, even though I was this little dude in the hood and I looked like the same, like I talked about language and I talked about poetry and I talked creatively. And so my cousin was like, yo, you a bad little dude, but you weird at the same time. And so I do think that God in His sovereignty was just doing a lot of little things in my life, planting little seeds because He knew how He would want me to serve Him later.